In this video, I'm telling the story of a Lego minifigure getting a job at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and will build all of the rooms from the second game. This story starts with a guy named John. He's a Lego minifigure who works at a desk in an office. There's this old computer from the 80s with a keyboard and a mouse. To add some extra detail, I made these walls with newspapers and other office equipment. And this is John's boss, who you guys named Vinny Pappalardo. Vinny gave John a bunch of paperwork and he can't do it on his own. So Mr. Pappalardo hired more workers and an intern, Jeff. My name is Jeff. He has a gross desk with soda, beer, and leftover pizza and never pays attention to work. Now that the work floor is finished, we can build Vinny's office. There's a desk with a lamp where he can earn his millions, and I added 2 chairs for meetings. He's gotta roast his employees somehow, boys. Because Vinny has too much money, he needs a safe where he can store it all. On top of the safe, there are also some trophies, and with that, Vinny's office is finished. Today is a big day for John because he might get the promotion he's been waiting for over 10 years. He gets called into the office and sees Jeff sitting next to him. Vinny starts talking and suddenly gives the promotion to Jeff. John is furious and storms out of the office. John packs his stuff and goes to the apartment building he lives in. First, we're building the entrance. I built a wall with some windows as well as this detailed door. The pavement is cracked and dirty and there's even some bubble gum on the ground. So John needs to watch where he's going. On the left, there's a trash can and John sees a $100 bill sticking out. This could really help him out financially. While trying to grab it, a big rat comes out and John runs into the building. Here we can find a desk with the homekeeper of the building who overcharges everyone. And I also added this world map behind it. I added some lockers for mail and it looks like John got more bills to pay. There's a sitting area, but I wouldn't sit there because these couches are all moldy. Next up, I filled in the floor with a lot of disgusting boards to make the lobby look creepy. And now John can go up to his apartment, but he has to climb all of these stairs because John lives on the top floor of the entire apartment building. And I gotta say, building this entire apartment building took a long time. And something else which also took a long time was climbing all of these stairs. But now we can finally build John's apartment. John lives with his wife Mary and their newborn son Jason. There's a small kitchen with a sink full of dishes and a fridge with outdated pizza. The dining table is filled with bills and old newspaper, but John can't afford a new one. Because John also can't afford a bed, he has this sleeping couch along with a baby crib for Jason. And above the bed I also added these cool posters because John is a big fan of horror movies and Jaws. On the other side of the room we can find John's old computer as well as this small bookshelf. And finally the apartment has a bunch of old floorboards. After a long day of work, John wants to take a shower. So he goes into the bathroom where I place a sink, a toilet, and a spooky mirror. And I also added this bathtub with a shower from my last Fnaf video. During dinner, his wife Mary tells John to get his life back together for her and her son because otherwise she will leave him. So he decides to man up and find a new job. He reads the newspaper and sees an old ad about a job at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. John immediately calls and can start his shift tomorrow night. The next evening, he changes into his security outfit and arrives at the pizzeria. So we're building the office next because this is the most iconic section of the game. So I grabbed a base and started building the walls. Next up, I added these openings for the air vents so the animatronics can scare you. I continued building the walls with the blue and green pattern, which you can also see in a video game, which is iconic to this location. Then I added a giant doorway where we can see all the animatronics. For the furniture, there's a desk with a fan and a drink along with a red chair for John to sit on. I added some TV screens and wiring as well as a bunch of paper on the walls. John sits in the chair and hears the phone ring.
Hello. Welcome to your new summer job at the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Take some time to explore the building. Good luck.
So after this, John wants to visit the stage rooms, and for this, I built a giant hallway and I built these 2 closets which you can see in the Gary's mod map. Next, I built the main hall and added a few pizza pieces on the walls. Here, we can also find 2 toilets, and I made these stalls so people can have some privacy. To the right, we can finally find the showroom. For this, I built all the walls and filled the floor with a bunch of black and white tiles. It will be hell to remove all of these pieces. We can also find the toy animatronics here and they need a stage. So I built the main stage and now the animatronics can take their place. I gotta say that all of these animatronics look awesome, but I think Toy Bonnie looks the best out of all 3. I also made all of the tables in front of the stage and you can see the cone pieces which I used to represent the hat. To the left of the room there's this giant carousel which I tried to make similar to the one of the game, but it was really hard. There are some brick-built Fnaf animals to ride on, so John runs there and has some fun. He'll also probably get dizzy too. Next, I built the John also sees Balloon Boy, who looks really accurate to the game. To the right, John finds the game area with a bunch of arcade machines, and John finds these games quite confusing. In the far right corner, there's a shelf with some teddy bears, which are supposed to represent the Fnaf fluffies. Then there's also this giant gift box, and John wonders what's in there. But we all know I hid the puppet in there, so don't tell him. And with that, the showroom is finally finished. Or not, because I almost forgot to add these doors. For the final room of this area, we need to make the kids' cove, where you can find some tables as well as a pile of junk named Mangle. I added the endoskeleton head along with movable legs, arms, his tail, and of course the hat from Mangle. Let's continue with the story. So John walks inside the room and sees Mangle in the corner, and it's making some pretty weird noises. And his shift is almost starting, so he runs back to the office and picks up the security monitor. John starts looking at the party room. Then I built this base for the second party room on the right and built the walls and the floor. I added 4 tables to the room and an air vent which connects to the office. Then I added the rest of the party rooms. John continues to check the cameras, and then around 3 AM while checking the camera, he hears a noise. He checks the main stage, but Toy Bonnie is missing. Then he sees him in party room 2 trying to crawl into the air vent. He checks the main stage again and sees Chica is missing too. Then he sees her in the hallway. Suddenly, John hears the air vent to his right. That was really scary, but luckily Bonnie left. Then John sees Chica in the hallway, so he puts on his mask and she disappears. Toy Freddy enters the hall and comes closer. So John puts on his mask and even sees Bonnie coming from the right. Bonnie is gone, but Freddy is still there, so he puts on his mask, and with that, John survived the first night. He never wants to go back again, but when he thinks of his son and wife, he can't let them down. He starts his shift and everybody is still in their place. So John feels optimistic, but then Bonnie and Chica move, and he sees Mangle in the prize corner. Freddy appears and comes closer and closer, and John puts on his mask again. Then when he's gone, Mangle appears in the top right corner as well as Foxy. Suddenly he hears a child giggle to his left. He checks the camera in the left vent and sees Balloon Boy. He ignores it and continues to charging the puppet's box, and then suddenly he sees Balloon Boy standing in the office. Then he can't use his flashlight because the batteries are gone. The next day, John dresses up for his third shift. He's got to make some money for his family. Today, all of the new animatronics don't seem to move. Then he decides to check the quietest part of the pizzeria, which is the parts and service room. For this, I built the room with the wall in the middle as well as this iron door. Now we can start adding the withered animatronics. For this, I got all of the animatronics and they look pretty accurate to the game, except for Bonnie, unfortunately, because I couldn't find one without a face, so this will do for this video. John checks the camera and sees the animatronics laying there, but suddenly he sees Foxy in the hallway. So he flashes his light 5 times and Foxy disappears. Next up, Bonnie appears, and when John checks the cameras, Bonnie appears in the office. John quickly puts on his mask. Then he flashes the light 5 times, charges the music box, checks the air vents, and puts on his mask. Could this be a tactic, he thinks to himself? The next time, Chica entered his office, and John put the mask on again, and she went away too. John survived till 6 AM, and now he feels confident. Only 2 more nights to go, and he will cash out a check for his family. The next day, John arrives for a shift with some pizza, and while eating, he sees the hallway is full of animatronics. Foxy is at the end of the hallway, and then also Mangle appears. So he quickly drops his mask on time before Mangle can enter the office. Because when Mangle enters the office, there's no getting rid of it. Then they disappear and he hears giggles to his left. He turns on the vent light and sees Balloon Boy. Before a repeat of night 2 happens, he puts on his mask. And luckily, Balloon Boy disappears. After a few hours, his flashlight is almost empty, so he puts on his mask but forgets to wind up the music box. Okay, so John got beat up pretty bad, but today it's his final night. He starts out the final night slowly and sees Foxy in the hallway. Then Mangle visits him again and again, and all of the other animatronics are also trying to grab him from the vents. Suddenly, both vents are filled and Freddy enters the office. He quickly grabs his mask and puts it on. Then he sees a triangle on the security monitor and the music box is running out. He's really stressed out under the mask. Now that John has survived all the night shifts, he has another $100 he can use for his family, and now he wants to go home to tell his wife that they're moving out after he finds another job. However, she says they've received mail. John opens the letter and discovers his worst nightmare.